Welcome back to Dinner for Two. Today we're talking about something that's happening in every relationship, or at least it's happened at some point. What do you think?
Absolutely. In every relationship without fail.
Yeah, this episode is entitled Love on Mute, when your partner shuts down.
Mm-hmm. And that can involve a lot of things. It can shut down talking. They can shut down touching. They can shut down doing. It's a lot of ways to shut down.
Yeah, so when love goes quiet, what do you do?
How do you fix it?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So yes, it happens. Have you ever been in a conversation and suddenly your partner just stops responding? You just stop talking? I know you have.
Mm-hmm.
I know you've been in them. As sad as that sounds, I know you have. I am so sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I was horrible. In some ways, I was horrible. I hope the great made up for some of that. But maybe you're the one who shuts down. And sometimes we know.
Oh, the men. Oh, absolutely. Men shut down.
Yeah.
Because men don't like conflict. They don't like confrontation.
Yeah, I would say they don't like confrontation.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say they don't like conflict. And those are two different things. I don't think they like being confronted or like confrontation. But once the confrontation or being confronted, then conflict, I don't know. You do pretty good with conflict.
Oh, I'd say it's been my experience that they don't like conflict. Because men generally, when it's just men, they'll try to avoid the conflict.
Okay.
So I'd say I don't think those two things are mutually exclusive.
Okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
I think
that's
it's
fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, you know men better than me.
Mm-hmm,
but
mm-hmm.
what I would, from my perspective, I would say, I don't think that any of us enter a conversation wanting to shut down.
No.
But a lot of times we come in and feel ourselves shutting down, and then we do as a defense mechanism.
Right.
Because we lack safety in the conversations. We know that this isn't going anywhere. Or a lot of times we'll shut down just because we know if the conversation continues, it's going to just get worse and it's not even worth it overall. So sometimes mid-conversation, we just make the decision that, you know what, I'm not doing this.
And see, that can be a positive thing. We talked about that before.
Mm-hmm.
You can say, hey, you know what, I can't give you full engagement right now as it relates to this conversation. So let's just stop and then we'll re-engage.
But when you say that, again, remember, like we talked about before, when you say, let's just stop and let's re-engage, let's say it in a way that meets the standards that we set before in like one of the previous episodes. Let's make sure that we're saying, listen, I can sense that this isn't going well. And that's not how I want us to engage.
Mm-hmm.
So because I want us to end up with resolution where everyone is feeling valued and respected in this conversation, how about we pause here? Let's pause here for a moment. And then let's come back and talk about this in maybe about an hour.
Right.
Give us both some time to kind of think about what has already been said or what the topic is. And then we can come back and sit down and have a more productive conversation. Being able to say something like that other than, no, we're going to just shut down, that's not.
Well, that goes back to our tone and timing. So, yeah, that tone is never going to be effective.
Right.
When you're talking about moving a relationship forward.
Right.
So whose responsibility is it to come back? If you say, hey, I'm going to need a little time, a little soak time to figure this out, whose responsibility is it to come back?
The person who called the timeout.
Mm-hmm.
The person who called the timeout. The person who called the timeout is your responsibility to go back. And if you set a time and you say you're going to come back at a particular time, then you are responsible for honoring your word.
Mm-hmm.
Because no one should have to walk around on eggshells or walk around in the space of pondering.
Yes.
Because that's what you're going off to do, to gather yourself and to really think about how to get resolution. You're not thinking about how I'm going to combat this or how I'm going to fight this or how I'm going to defend myself. But you take that moment to step away to say, let's figure out how we can resolve this. What is resolution going to be? And what are some good things that we can do to end up in a good place when this is over? So when you do that, it is your responsibility. If you call the time out, then it's up to you to pick up that flag.
And that's a trust builder when you do that. If you say, hey, I need some time to think about it, And then you actually initiate or reinitiate the conversation, pick it up right where you left off. And then that allows that person to know that they can trust you in the future, and that builds trust in the relationship.
Right. So let's talk about how to really deal with this. First, some people are fighters and some people are flighters. And if you're a fighter, then of course you're ready to stand in the gap whenever it comes. But some people shut down because they realize that they don't want to do this. They don't want to be there. They don't want to be in that space. And both of them create tension. So with that, there are some things that you can really do to help alleviate that tension so that you can have the intimacy that we talked about in the previous episode, and so that you can maintain a space that's safe for conversation, even when it's tough conversation.
So neither one of those is wrong, though. If you're a fighter or a flighter, there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Because you're kind of a compilation of your experiences, right? So that's going to develop that characteristic in you. So it's not that one of those is right or wrong, but those are one of the things that you absolutely have to talk about. And if you know that's your nature, where you're automatically going to be combative, then that's something you need to be really aware of.
And working on.
Yes, it's because your tone is definitely going to come out as it relates to that. And we've talked about tone and timing before.
Yeah, and everything speaks. So remember that even if you say, no, I'm not mad. No, I ain't mad. And your tone is there, or your face, or your eyes, or whatever the thing is that you bring to that conversation, know that all of that stuff speaks. So you can say one thing and it can cause your partner to shut down because you really are. And if you are angry, say, you know what? Something you did hurt me.
Right.
Let's find some words other than anger too, because sometimes it's not anger. It's disappointment. It's fear. It is a lack of safety. You've removed my safety net. I count on you for certain things. And now I feel like I don't have that level of safety with you anymore. I feel vulnerable. Now you've left me uncovered. You've left me in a space where I feel defensive. I feel like I have to be defensive. I don't feel safe. I feel distrust. I feel whatever the emotion happens to be. But we're going to, again, we talked about coming back and having some conversation around that in that language. So we'll do that at some point very soon. But with that being said, just know that, there's some things that we need to do to pour into each other's emotional bank account. And we've heard that for years, emotional bank account. But there's some things that you have to put into the bank account all the time so that when things like this happen, no one's left depleted.
That makes perfect sense, though. And we listened to, I can't remember who it was now, but they said you can't treat your relationship like it's a cactus. You can't water it and then put it in a corner and think that it's going to flourish and grow. And so when you start talking about making deposits, you also have to make deposits into that relationship on a regular basis and be intentional about making deposits into the relationship.
Yeah. Wow. So how do we fix this? I like the break and reconnect model. What do you think?
Break and reconnect. Tell me a little bit more about that one.
So if you're the person that's shutting down, let me go to it so I can just share it really verbatim so I can make sure everyone gets it. The break and reconnect model. So we use this model, and what it is if you're the one shutting down, say, I need a moment, but I promise we will talk about this later. And that's taking that break. And if you're the partner, if your partner is shutting down, instead of forcing them to talk, recognize that they're shutting down, that they're leaving the conversation. And then you say, I'm here when you're ready, and I want to understand you better. So do you want to take a break now? So you have to be proactive in that space. And yes, that takes some maturity because you have to be willing to say, what is our goal here? Is our goal to get resolution, or is our goal to win a fight?
Right.
Are you trying to win a fight, or are you trying to resolve an issue?
Right.
And if it's to resolve an issue, which is what it should be in any relationship, then you want to make sure that you're shutting, if you're the one shutting down, that you ask for that time And if you're the person, if you notice that you're in tuned enough to notice that your partner is shutting down, and then you recognizing that and give them an out, give them the space. Because sometimes they may be so emotionally attached to the thing that they don't even realize that they're shutting down. They may not even realize that they're in a space where they're like, now I really and truly need to say or do something different, but I just don't have the words. I just don't know how. So give them an out. Remember, you're the partner in this. You're the partner even in these exchanges. So when shutting down happens, you have to be able to say something.
And you have to ask yourself a question of whether you want this relationship to thrive or you want to win.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Wow.
And so if you want it to thrive, then you can't keep injecting negative things into your relationship and into your spouse and trying to force them to do something, because you're not going to have a thriving relationship at that point.
Right.
Yeah, you might have a compliant relationship at that point.
Right.
But you won't have a thriving relationship at that point.
Right. And nobody wants compliant anything, because if you get compliance without commitment, you have nothing. You get compliance without commitment. That is that person that just does it just because it's there, but you have no heart in it. And you don't want to be in a relationship with someone who's not there in heart.
Right.
You're not. It's just there in compliance. That's a partnership that you can have with anyone.
Right.
That doesn't require any emotional attachment at all.
And your relationship shouldn't be transactional.
It is right.
It should be based
so
on
right.
feelings and emotions and commitment and respect and all of the things that we've talked about before.
Right. 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 When you're ready to start talking, though, again, after you do the break and reconnect, there's something that we call the soft startup technique. And the soft startup technique, let me read it. Instead of, why do you always ignore me? Why don't you say something like, I feel hurt when you don't talk to me? Can we try again? Now, that takes some vulnerability. That really takes some vulnerability, because you have to be able to say to yourself, you know what? I feel safe enough in this space to tell you that I'm hurting. I feel safe enough in this space to tell you that you've hurt me. And then you have to be talking to someone who's mature enough to be able to hear your hurt, and it matters.
Right.
It makes a difference. So you have to feel safe, which means all of that has to have been created long before this conversation starts. So it's important that all of the things that we've talked about in this communication series are in place, and they're building on each other, as you can see as we go through this series. Go back and watch the other episodes if you've missed any, because it's important for you to know that small shifts keep your partner from feeling attacked and makes things really more meaningful when you do actually have the conversation. Can you imagine, instead of going back in the conversation with, so you ready to talk now?
No, that doesn't
with something,
work.
with something other than saying, so you ready to talk now? And going back in with something as simple as, I feel hurt when we don't talk. Can we try again now? Let's try again now.
The first thing I thought about when you were mentioning that was, we live in Florida, and so there's always hurricane preparedness that you have to do.
Yes.
And so we go out and we get our supplies, and we have our rations, and we have all the things, our batteries, everything that we have. We have a generator. We prepare before the storm comes.
Yeah.
And so as you were talking, I was sitting here thinking, if you're already in a relationship, but you haven't done your preparation, you haven't done your effective communication, you're not intentional about showing your spouse extraordinary care, you haven't done all of the things ahead of time, when the storm shows up, it's going to be too late to run out and try to grab whatever it is that you need. There's no toilet
paper on the shelf.
It is absolutely. And Walmart is closed.
Yes, yes.
So you got to get all of that stuff ahead of time, which means, like we've talked about before, you've got to be intentional about doing this every day. Your relationship is not a cactus. You're not going to be able to water it and sit it in the corner and expect it to thrive.
Right. Yeah. Good stuff. Well, let's talk about this week's challenge.
Okay.
All right. So this week, we're going to give you a challenge. Last week, we skipped the challenge, but let's give you the challenge this week. And this week we're calling this the Reconnect Ritual. Every day, choose one small act of love. It could be something as simple as a hug, a kind word, a note in a lunchbox, or a note in a backpack or a bag, or something that your spouse may take to work. A small act of service, just something. And these little things will rebuild emotional safety and make deeper conversations easier. So this week, just find something every single day to do that's just one small gesture that you ordinarily would not have done. Be shock them. Shock them. If she's up at the sink washing dishes or whatever, because I still wash my dishes with hot water, like real hot water, and then put them in the dishwasher. But if she's up at the sink, go give her a hug, just for no apparent reason. Just no apparent reason, and see what that does for your relationship.
Another example that we've used before is that in relationships, you want to always build fences with gates, because there's going to be an opportunity for you to always come back, even if you didn't do your best at your timing and you didn't do your best at your tone, which is going to happen.
Yeah.
You can make sure that you're always building bridges so you can always get back.
Yeah.
And even if you find that fences are being built in your relationship, make sure they have gates so that you can open and close them, and you can come and you can go back, because this is somebody that you've committed to, you've chose them. And so really we're looking at your decision making, because this person is the person that you chose.
Right.
So make sure that you're always building those bridges so that you can always be able to come back and re-engage with your spouse, and make sure that you're working toward a thriving relationship.
All right. Well, with that said, remember, silence isn't always rejection. Sometimes it's protection. So just be mindful of that and learn how to listen differently so that the walls will come down, and make sure that you're constantly putting something in that bank account so that when you have to make a withdrawal, that you can walk back across that bridge and back through that fence, back through that gate, so that you can get right back to where you need to be. So next episode, talk that talk, speaking life into your relationship. We'll see you next time. Thank you.